I took some time and realized that from the minute I wake up and how I wake up to the minute I go to sleep and how I go to sleep and everything in between, there are dozens of small, medium, and large patterns and habits that I'm doing that are either helping or not helping. So I said, you know what? Got to do it. Now is the time. Scary as anything, but I said, I got my children here. That's my motivation right now. I want to be the best person for them and see what happens.
Welcome back to the Outsourcing and Scaling Show. My guest today is Josh Cary. Josh, how you doing today?
I am so good, Nathan. This is an absolute treat. Thank you for the invite.
Yeah, no problem. This should be a very interesting interview. For those of you that don't know, Josh spent over 40 years in hiding. That's right. He was hiding every aspect of himself and showing up with a mask on at all areas of his life, trying to gain the approval of everyone else. At 19, he actually changed his name and entered into what would become a 15-year career as a professional actor and filmmaker. The applause and external accolades didn't completely heal his feelings of anxiety and insecurities, and he found himself even more isolated than ever. Today, Josh is a podcast host, business coach to entrepreneurs who are ready, willing, and able to say, F that noise, and show up once and for all as a person they know they are capable of being. I know you have a very interesting story, and we're going to talk all about that. But first, let's take a gigantic step back. What were you like as a kid growing up? Were you a rebel? Were you a straight-A student? I know you didn't always think that you want to be an entrepreneur, but did you even have that entrepreneurial itch at all?
No, I was none of those things. I was not a rebel. I was a lonely, scared kid that couldn't understand why nobody was giving me the time of day. So I slapped on that label and said, all right, I guess nobody wants me around and I'm not capable. So again, I chose to wear that label. And once we identify with something as a person, what do? We go out into the world and we seek the people and experiences that will validate just that. So consciously or not, typically not, we go out, and that's what I did. And I found all the people that were very willing to validate my own story, that I'm not capable, nobody wants me around. So that's what I did for many years. And my entrepreneurial itch came, I remember young in like grade school, my mom used to work for a gum company, and she would go to the supermarkets and have to restock some of the shelves. And in that, she would take some of the expired gum home. And I said, oh, expired gum. I will sell that to my friends. And that's what I did.
How'd that work out?
It worked out. 25 cents for a pack of Chewels was not a bad deal. I'm sure the FDA would, have something else to say about selling expired gum, but, I guess it worked out in the moment.
I love it. Can you tell a little bit more about your story? I mean, obviously, it's not the typical story that we hear from people that we interview on the podcast. I'd love for you to dive a little bit deeper.
Yeah, of course. That's what I'm here for. So because I had that label on that, I'm not capable, nobody wants me around, I showed up in every situation with that tone, with that vibe, and you receive what you put out. So I would go into all sorts of life, into social, into personal relationships. My goodness, I'm only barely trying to, figure it out and get it right today. But those were always a mess. All kinds of business scenarios as an adult, as a young adult, trying to make ends meet in my own businesses, always hitting a wall and always finding this struggle that, why can't I make things work? I was out there, hiding all of my power. That's why today I am the hidden entrepreneur. Spent the 40 plus years in hiding all of my power, all of my ability, knowing full well, this is where the internal struggle and conflict came, that I would be out into the world, hiding all of my power and ability, seeking the approval of everybody else, just wanted people to like me at all costs, and didn't want to rock the boat, didn't want to feel superior, quote unquote, to anybody else, didn't want to make anybody feel less than, I always had to play small and play second fiddle. So that's what I did, and just always showed up in that regard. But the irony is that I would then go home and know full well what I was capable of. Know that, I could do what they're doing. I could probably do what they're doing much better than they are. But I didn't. I was scared out of my mind. So I would hide behind fear, use that as the excuse to do something or not do something. And that created a lot of tension, a lot of struggle internally. And then what do you do with those emotions that you don't know how to handle? You mask them in various forms of addiction and habits and patterns that just don't serve you. And after 40 plus years, I was ready to make a different move.
And how does that work? I mean, did you literally just flip the switch and the next day going forward, or is it a long transition? Did you have habits that you made sure that you committed yourself to?
Yeah, so it's a long, steady process, right? It's never really about ripping the Band-Aid off. Maybe at some point you make the decision, right? You make the choice, which is the big light bulb moment. At some point, you have to make the choice. You have to make the decision that, okay, this isn't how I want my life to go anymore. And leading up to that moment, there were some efforts that I was like, I want to be better. And, I want to show up more as me and really put my best foot forward. But I really wasn't ready. I was doing the preliminary work, reading the books and trying to meditate and trying to just get my act together there. But it didn't really have me shift until I found myself today. I've got 2 adoring children, a 6-year-old daughter, a 4-year-old son. Give shout outs to often as possible because they were the ones that were my inspiration, my mirror at the time, right? Even early on in their young lives, I realized, oh, I see what's happening here, guys. Okay, I'm the child in this circle. So because of that realization, I said, I always wanted to be a father growing up. And now given the chance, I'm not going to ruin this. I'm not going to have these 2 kids watch their father desperate, needy, insecure, seeking approval as all they know. And then that's how they see me and that's who they become. I said, absolutely not. Now the line is drawn. I have to step up. And that's when I said, I get it. You guys are this incredible mirror and you guys are everything that I wish I ever could have been. You're, confident, playful, magnificent, kind, loving, adoring, everything you're putting into the world. I'm going to go over here. I'm going to do my work. So I took some time and realized that from the minute I wake up and how I wake up to the minute I go to sleep and how I go to sleep and everything in between, there are dozens of small, medium, and large patterns and habits that I'm doing that are either helping or not helping. So I said, you know what? Got to do it. Now is the time. Scary as anything, but I said, I got my children here. That's my motivation right now. I want to be the best person for them and see what happens. My biggest fear was that all these people that were in my world that I attracted by wearing that label, I said, you know what though? What happens if these people retaliate? Imagine if I take a step to the right, they don't like that. They're going to have something to say about that. Am I strong enough to, stand up for myself? I never was, but I said, you know what? I just got to inch over, inch by inch, strengthen myself, surround myself with even one person that I could get behind or could get behind me. So if something happens, I can lean on them a little bit. So it's all about slow and steady progress. That's all it is. And I just replaced a bunch of negative habits and patterns slowly but surely, one at a time, seeing the win, feeling good about it, observing the result, seeing the world not collapsing around me, quite the opposite. And here we are today. I get to have great conversations with people like you.
Can you give us an example of how maybe an interaction went with a client, with someone in the outside world before and then after?
Sure. So I attracted all the negativity that I feared. That's what we do when you go out and you're either consciously or subconsciously assuming something's going to happen. That's what happened. I spent a great deal of time in the digital marketing space, running my own agency. And every day was just, I would wake up and there'd be a pit in my stomach because I knew that, yeah, I'm feeding a family, I'm making ends meet, I'm paying the bills, but I knew that I was capable of so much more, but I wasn't able to, get over that because I couldn't tweak my business, I learned, until I tweak myself. So as much as I show up, that's what I'm attracting. I'm not in the right headspace. I'm not in the right physical space here. So I would be met with all this client resistance and aggravation and frustration and all of that constantly. And there would literally be smear campaigns against me, trying to tarnish my reputation, like a lot. And I'm like, what is going on here? I'm a good person. I have wonderful intentions. I'm nice. I'm generous. I'm doing the best I can. And yet I'm still being met with this resistance, with this outcome. Like, something is terribly off here. So there were moments like that.
And how does that translate into hiring and managing people? Because I feel like a lot of entrepreneurs, they struggle with that too. They care a lot what the people that work for them or work with them think. It could be an outside vendor. It could be an internal employee in their office. It could be a VA in the Philippines. And that impacts their decision making. It impacts how they talk to people. People actually end up respecting them less over time because of that. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So I've had a small handful of in-house, in-person hires. One, I had for lack of a better word, an assistant who was my right hand, and I had found her locally, and there was a great, match here. But then all of my shortcomings and insecurities come into play because I wasn't strong enough. I wasn't secure enough to really manage her and train her and teach her. So imagine that all of these insecurities that come up in every part of my world prior are now still, I'm the one paying her, yet I couldn't bring myself to really correct or, be a boss. My goodness, that's just how atrocious it is. So all these things would happen, and I was like, I just can't deal with this. And then what winds up happening is the tension, the friction, all of this stuff that eventually leads to a terrible falling out, and I had to let her go because there was just all this stuff, and I was like, oh, it's not working, she's not good, it's not happening, my numbers aren't growing, she's not getting it. But that's all me, that's all on me. That wasn't on her. But that's where it goes when you're in this just unhealthy space.
Yeah, totally get it. Any hiring tips or advice that you have, especially for someone that might be struggling with that, or just on that day-to-day side on how to interact with people that you're working with?
Yeah, for me, I had to get myself right in order to just interact with people and be the best colleague, be the best peer, be the best boss that I could be. So you really need to start there by examining your shortcomings, your needs, and get them met first. Do that work first. So when you do hire, it is as legit and authentic as it could be. That's the only way around it. I had to get myself in a clear head, in a confident space, in a legitimate space personally, so that I can show up properly in the business world.
Let's talk about coaching. I know you work with a lot of different entrepreneurs, and we talked a little bit about being able to, or I guess being more self-aware and understanding and not caring what people think. Outside of that, where do you see entrepreneurs struggling the most?
We care so much about what people think, and that paralyzes us, and we don't make any move. So I see so many people who want to do things, and they'll either say, oh, I don't know what I want to do, but a little probing and prodding, they know exactly what they want to do. It's all just fear-based because they're scared with how they're going to look, what people are going to say, what it's going to mean, can they do it? So they need this this helping hand, right? This quote unquote permission that isn't permission at all. It's just getting out of your own way. Like in my story, I knew from day one what I was capable of doing, but I put on all these fronts, all these masks to allow myself to play it safe. And that's what I feel is happening. Whenever I work with someone, they know exactly what they're capable of doing. They're genius, like we all are. You're brilliant. Just get out of your own way. So figure out what that noise in your head is really about and figure out why you keep perpetuating this false story and belief. I sold myself a story as truth for many years that was all lies. But that's how I showed up. That's what I needed to do until I learned it and got it differently. So in the entrepreneurial space, we care a great deal of what people are going to say or what they're not going to say. And that just keeps us not moving forward.
What daily habits do you do to keep that noise out?
Oh, I thought you'd never ask. Well, I love this because I see my day-to-day as if I'm in recovery, right? And in many ways I am from a lot of negative habits and patterns. And when you're in any sort of recovery, it's a daily thing, right? You don't just do it for a day, a week, a month, or a year and then say, got it, I'm done. I'm just going to move on and now I can live happily ever after. It's something you have to live with and attribute constantly. But here's the thing. It's not a chore. I love my daily habits and patterns that are, by the way, always evolving. So here's the thing. When somebody says, let's take a good example, an easy example, I want to lose 50 pounds. What do they typically do? They restructure their whole day, their whole thinking, their whole process and say, I'm going to go to the gym 5 days a week. I'm going to eat 3 meals of salad every day. I'm going to chug 2 gallons of water. I'm going to get 10 hours of sleep. And we know how that winds up. You don't have to do that. And that's not what I did to get here. And that's not what I'm doing in where I go from here. So what I do is like I said, I looked at all honestly, what small, medium, and large patterns and habits was I doing that were either serving or not serving. And I replaced one at a time. So for example, I started observing the people that I love and I respect and admire, people in my world and in books and on TV and whatnot. And I noticed that there was one thing among many that just kept coming up. They all seem to get up early, right? The most successful, they always say, well, I get up early. I'm like, okay, well, I don't really get up early enough, but I could afford to get up a little earlier. So today I get up at 6, which I think is good. I know that there's a whole 5 a.m. club out there. Maybe I'll consider that in the future. But 6 to me is perfect. But I didn't start from, I get up at 8. Now I'm going to get up at 6. Get up at 8. Now maybe this week I'm going to get up at 7:45, right? Go, do that for a week. And guess what? That's a win. Observe how good you feel because you said something and you committed and you followed through. And then say, you know what? Now I'm going to get up at 7:30 or 7 o'clock, whatever it is. So my habits and patterns rely today. I deliberately get up early, right? You've heard it. I own my morning. I have 2 small children and I don't want to get up when they're getting up. So I make sure that I have at least an hour or so. My morning is deliberate. I get up a certain time without the snooze button. That's another habit that changed. Simple, right? Don't snooze. You read about it. It's more effective and more productive. I get up early. I hydrate with some lemon water and sea salt, right? So just these like little specific things. And I'm like, somebody I respect said that this might work. Let me try it. I do that. Then I exercise. I run 2 miles on my treadmill. And then I come up, I make coffee. I eat a light breakfast. Like I never check email. I never scroll social because these are just the habits and patterns that I want to observe that I feel good about. So there's a lot of things in that regard that I just do. I test for myself. And if they make me feel good, my best, then I continue to do them. And then I observe honestly, what is really getting in my way here? Like, I'm doing this. Is that the best I can do it? And we go from there.
I love it. Josh, this has been great. Where can people find out more about you and what are you most excited about for the rest of the year?
What a great question. My website is really the hub for all my stuff, joshcary.com. It's got my podcast episodes. You can watch all kinds of videos. You can read more about me. You can click over to any social platform where you enjoy hanging out, and we can socialize from there. And what's interesting is that I found myself, I love being a podcast host as well. And in the course of a year, I've put out over 115 episodes now to date. And I realized that, wow, this is where I can really double down. I've interviewed many people who just complimented my style after the show and said, you know what? I've been on a lot of shows before, and this was like the best interview ever. So after hearing a similar feedback, I thought, well, let me see what I'm actually doing. What am I actually bringing to the table, right? Self-awareness is always key. See what's working and not working, how people are reacting and not reacting and responding. So I figured that, you know what? I love this whole medium. I want to help others perfect it. So I'm getting ready to shoot content for 2 courses that complement each other: best interview ever and best guest ever, how to perfect your interview style and how to show up as the best guest you can. And that's going to take a lot of my time.
Love it. Thanks so much for coming on, Josh. Have a great rest of the day.
This has been brilliant. Thank you, Nathan.